Hi there, Steve Kaufman here again at Langfest in Montreal, and I have with me Lydia Machová, a friend from Bratislava, where she organized with a group of volunteers, of course, the Bratislava Polyglot Gathering. And Lydia is not only a polyglot and a learner of languages, but she is also involved in helping people learn. And I have a number of things I want to ask you about, but I want to start with that. And of course, you're presenting on that subject here. And so what exactly is this idea of helping people learn?
Yeah, well, it's my own approach to teaching languages. I call it language mentoring because I don't want people to come to me and expect to be taught a language that I know, I have the knowledge of, and I just impart the knowledge upon them. I don't think that works. What I want them to do is to find their own way how they can learn a language, how they can spend enough time with the language, not just come to the lessons twice a week for 1 hour and a half, and to really learn by themselves. And I'll be happy to help them with that. I'm happy to show them the resources and the methods how to work with that, but they need to really do the work. Okay.
Now, spend enough time on their own. I remember I was at a conference in Germany where Sprachen und Beruf, and they said the average corporate language learner in Germany, they did a survey, has 1 hour a week with a teacher, and the average learner puts in 1 more hour. That's not very much.
That's not enough. No.
What has been your experience with the people that you help?
Yeah, my experience is that people usually think they don't have enough time, so they go for the courses with the teacher because they think, oh, I don't have more time anyway. But then I show them ways how they can have fun with the language, and it's not really seen as learning.
Right.
It's like, well, you're reading a book that you love, loved in reading in another language, so you're just spending time with the language, and suddenly it's not seen as, oh, I have to do this. This is homework. But oh, when can I continue to read my favorite book?
But that's assumed. Read favorite book. Okay. It's difficult to read a book in another language.
Yes. Well, there's a few methods how you can approach that. But first of all, what you can do is you either get a bilingual book where you have it one page and another page, right? Or you get 2 copies of the same book, which is something I like to do. So I would get the Spanish Harry Potter and the Slovak Harry Potter, and I would read. And if I don't understand something, and I mean not just one word, but some part where I have no clue what they're talking about, I would look at the Slovak part, right? Or you can. You can go through the text and look up words that you don't know, for example, through link, right? So that's another way how you can work with text.
Okay.
But the thing is, you really need to go through a lot of material. It's not enough if you just read text in a textbook at a language school.
Right.
I think this will never be enough.
Right. So, and then you help people show them where there are resources, show them how to go about becoming independent learners. And are you able to convert these people into independent learners?
Yes, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah.
The first time I did this experiment, because I didn't know if it would work for other people too. I know it works for me, but I did an experiment with 100 students at a university. They were language students, but they did not really learn a lot by themselves. I mean, the usual approach of a student who studies to be a translator or interpreter is, oh, I go to study to this university and the university gives me the language, kind of.
Right.
And I told them, guys, let's not do it. Let's spend a lot of free time with the language. Let's watch series, let's read books, let's listen to podcasts as much as possible. We monitored it in some way and motivated each other, and suddenly they improved immensely within 2 months. So that's where I tested it.
Right.
And now I do it for people who have nothing to do with languages, like they're not studying it, they don't necessarily like the foreign languages, they don't have a passion for it, but they develop the passion.
Right.
And this is so important. And
so we can develop the passion in
even
people.
People who tell me they hated English,
Right.
they hated it for 20 years and they could not progress, suddenly fall in love with one method,
Right.
one way of working with the language, suddenly they can't stop, right? And they spend, people who are working, have families, a full-time job, whatever, spend 10 to 15 hours a week with the language. And I have this experience with hundreds of people now in Slovakia, so it seems possible.
And if you spend that much time with the language, you are going to improve.
Yes, yes. And
some might improve faster than others, but they will all improve.
And what I really liked in your book, by the way, was you said you are the best judge of how much you've improved. You don't need a test. You don't need someone to tell you. And I honestly think it's really impossible to tell if you're now on a B2 or a B1 based on one test, which takes you half an hour, right? Like it's just a choice of selection of the vocabulary.
Right. So we agree that you are the best judge.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden you understand something that you didn't understand 3 months earlier, and which is a wonderful feeling.
It is.
And you don't need to take a test, which you might pass and might fail based on some arbitrary, criteria. And you are primarily, like me, an input-based learner.
Yes.
And the question that always comes up that we input-based learners are asked, two questions really. One, how do you then activate it? Mm-hmm. Okay, you've got all this input that's gone in. How do you get it to start coming out? Yes. And then the second question is, because it's easy to do, let's say, 2-3 months of input with language A, put language A aside and start into language B. And now there's a possibility of interference between these two languages, especially if they're related languages. And I think you recently had some experience with that. So
I did, yes.
Two questions. A, how do you activate? And B, how do you deal with interference?
Yes. Well, I personally like to start speaking in a language about 2 or 3 months after I started with the input. But this is for languages that are close to the languages that I already know. I've never started learning an Asian language or something very far from my languages, so I think I would need more time in that case. But I'm not in a hurry. I don't need to start speaking right away.
Right.
I start speaking when I have some vocabulary, and it's not yet a moment where I would be comfortable speaking because it takes time. But I think what people that are learning their X language have as an advantage is it's going to take time and you're going to improve.
Have patience.
Absolutely.
And we know we're going to get there. Absolutely.
And you can even, in a weird way, you can enjoy this frustration.
I have to interrupt you just to stress that.
Yes.
Even at the beginning when we're struggling, we know we're going to get there because we've been in that struggling mode, forget everything, no traction, getting nowhere, and it all sounds the same, and we know we're going to get there. Exactly. So that's a big advantage that we have over the inexperienced learner. Exactly. And then later on, we know it's a long road to get to that comfortable fluency level, and we're quite happy to stay there, and we're enjoying it.
You're not expecting very rapid improvement within 1 week, and you're not frustrated, oh my God, I still can't speak. It's like, it's gonna come, right?
And we also know that it will activate. I mean, that has been your experience.
Absolutely.
It will activate. Yes.
And the best way, actually, what I like to do is, so I have some speaking practice, but it may be just 2 lessons a week, not like very, very intense. And then I like to go to the country where the language is spoken, and in 2 weeks, I feel like I could dream, I could do anything in that language. It's such a freedom, right?
I know. And that was my feeling. Unfortunately, I only had like 6 days in Prague, so it wasn't as great as it could have been. I had 3 weeks in Lviv for Ukrainian, and 1 week is not enough. It's 2 to 3 weeks to activate, and boom. Okay, second question. And I mentioned that I had put a lot of effort into Slovak leading up to the conference in Bratislava, and even though I had spent so much more time on Ukrainian, I met a Ukrainian, or there were several Ukrainians in Bratislava. I couldn't say a thing.
Yes.
And yet, I would say half an hour into a conversation with Solomia in Lviv, my Ukrainian was back.
Exactly.
That quickly.
I have the same experience.
Okay, so talk a little bit about this interference thing, and is it a problem? Is it something we should worry about?
Yeah.
Or we just accept the fact sometimes we just can't perform,
That's the answer. I mean, I used to worry about that. I was hesitating whether I want to start with Russian because my Polish is pretty good and pretty advanced. I didn't want to lose it because I've put so much time into it.
Right.
So what I did now, I did learn Russian because I wanted to travel in post-Soviet countries. And exactly this is my experience. What happened? I was in Russia. I took the Trans-Siberian Express from Moscow to Mongolia, speaking just Russian. Now I met 3 Polish guys at the end of my trip. I couldn't say a word. And at the beginning, I was a bit scared. It's like, oh my God, I've lost my Polish. This is terrible. You know, like I sacrificed it to Russian. But then I put Russian aside and I concentrated just on Polish, and it took me about a day to gain my full fluency again. But what I found out I cannot do is when I was on the phone with a Polish guy with Russian sitting next to me, and they would go silent when they heard me speaking in a Slavic language, which was not Russian, and they would try to translate what I was saying in Polish into Russian. And I was on the phone and I couldn't say anything in any language. I was totally lost for words because these 2 languages were coming in at the same time, the same content, simultaneously. I couldn't do it even though I'm a trained interpreter.
And we'll sort of close on that note. It's, of course, the brain learns. The brain cannot help but learn.
Yes.
Exposed to experiences, the brain is going to develop some kind of neural connections, but sometimes we can't control it. And I find that at times I'll be speaking, I don't know, Russian or when I'm struggling, let's say not Russian, maybe it's Ukrainian, maybe it's Slovak, and out comes Japanese.
Yes.
Wow, like I don't know what happened up there, but they kind of took the wrong turn and went in. These things happen.
Yes.
We can't control the brain. I think we just need to be confident. The brain will learn.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. Occasionally it will let us down.
Yes.
But by and large it does a good job.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you very much.